Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College, a program that encourages discussion in our community on today's local and global issues. Now your host for Conversations from St. Norbert College, author, professor, and nationally known sports economist, Dr. Kevin Quinn.
Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College. I'm Kevin Quinn. Our special guest is Ed Policy, Vice President and General Counsel for the Green Bay Packers, and we'll discuss Policy's leadership role with the Packers in their development efforts in the area surrounding Lambeau Field. And we'll also talk a little bit about Ed's own background. So Ed, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me, Kevin.
Well, you have a remarkable story yourself, but before we get to that, let's talk about the Titletown development. Everyone's been buzzing about that for a couple of months.
Sure. Well, the Packers had a very exciting announcement just a few months ago back in August where we announced really our master plan for the Titletown district as well as our three initial tenants. And it was a very exciting announcement. The Titletown district is going to be a 34-acre mixed-use development immediately west of Lambeau Field. And as exciting as the announcement was, really, this isn't a new concept. The concept of Titletown and developing some ancillary real estate near Lambeau Field began well before my time with the Packers, probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And it's kind of an interesting history, and it's interesting to look at the evolution of how this project has really developed over the years. Initially, the Packers were considering partnering with the village of Ashwaubenon, the county, and the city to acquire a lot of land to the east of the stadium. So we're talking about the land where the old Brown County Arena still sits and the Visitors Center, and there's a yellow brick building there that used to be the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame. There was some talk about acquiring all of that land and really developing everything to the east of the stadium, essentially continuing, where the atrium and the Miller Light Gate is right now, essentially just adding on to that and continuing through that northeast quarter of the parking lot and going across Oneida Street into that area. That became, I think, fairly complicated because it involved, we had to coordinate with a lot of political subdivisions with the county and the village and the city. And there was a lot of public land there. So that created a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of just complications. So probably about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we began to concentrate a little bit more on the land to the west of the stadium because it was all private land. It was all in one political subdivision. It's all in the village of Ashwaubenon. And once we acquired it, we would be able to have much more control over it, and we'd be able to move efficiently. So that's really what we began to do, and it took us a few years, took us a long time to acquire all the land that we need over there. But it was fun to finally get to the point where we could announce it. We had to keep a lot of secrets, and there were a lot of fits and starts throughout the process. But it was fun when we were finally able to announce it back in August.
Yeah, I remember early discussions talked about some sort of an entertainment district that was right to the east. And I remember seeing a rendering of it, and I remember thinking at the time, oh, that would be a very cool thing. And around that same time, I had an opportunity to be up on the 400 level before a game started, and it was one of those, sunny October days, and just watching the people stream in through what was at that time, the brand new Eastern Gate. Right. I just thought, oh yeah, this could really be something. So your timing was excellent in some ways because, I don't know if you heard, but there was a bit of a real estate issue that happened the last few years.
That's right.
And the Packers had cash, which was an important thing to have when absolutely nobody else had cash. So that was very fortuitous, I'm guessing.
Right. Well, and with that real estate it wasn't just a real estate downturn. Obviously, it was a major recession, and we did have cash, but we needed more than cash. We needed partners, and it was really going to be difficult to get people to see our vision and to partner with us in this development during that period of time. Also, I think the period of time that it took us to acquire the land, it allowed us to back up and really think about this and plan. So we commissioned an economic study. Not only of that neighborhood, but of the entire region. And I think that really helped us to, not only did the project shift geographically from one side of the stadium to the other, but it shifted just the very nature of the project. It was at one point more of a shopping mall. And if it was going to be a very nice shopping mall, I think it would have been a terrific addition. But it's become something, I think, much better and much bigger than a shopping mall. Instead of getting into the mall business, now we're kind of getting into the neighborhood business. We really want to build a real vibrant and active year-round neighborhood. So what we're going to be building here, and I can get into the renderings a little bit, but what we're going to be building is really, the heart of it is this 10-acre public park and plaza, and it's going to be surrounded by some really exciting and attractive options for lodging and shopping and dining and entertainment. So it's something that we felt this community would really benefit from, and something that you couldn't put anyplace else in this community. We already have a terrific shopping mall right down the street on Oneida, and certainly we're pretty excited about all the things that are developing downtown and into Pier, but in particular downtown's developing a nice urban center, so we really weren't looking to do that. And where else in the region could you develop something of this nature? And then obviously have it right next to probably the largest tourist magnet in the entire community.
Right. I mean, the tourist magnet is exactly right. I mean, you see people streaming in from all over the region for many years, and now with the new stadium and the Hall of Fame and all the other stuff that you have attracting, it's even more than it was before. So talk a little bit about the inspiration for this. I mean, where did you get the idea?
Yeah, I think early on, we look back maybe 7 years ago when there was some talk about developing it to the east side. Probably some of that inspiration, I wasn't here then, I assume some of it came from what the Patriots were doing with Patriot Place. They were essentially developing a beautiful shopping mall and a mixed-use development next to Patriot Place. I think the inspiration changed, though, over the years, and I think a lot of that's just based on our economic study, but also based on the structure of our ownership and the structure of our community, and us being a community-owned team. This became more of a community endeavor than kind of a retail endeavor, if that makes any sense.
So, Ed, tell me a little bit about the partners that you guys brought in. I mean, you brought in some professional developers that are very specialized to work on this, right?
Right. Well, we did bring in Sterling Property Development out of Manhattan, and it's really run. I don't know if you're probably fairly familiar with Major League Baseball, and recently the Mets had a terrific season and just lost in Game 5 of the World Series.
I'm a Cub fan, so I'm not quite over
perhaps
it.
I shouldn't bring up the fact then that
well, they beat the Cardinals, so it was a successful season, but
I shouldn't bring up then the fact that the Sterling is actually an offshoot of the Wilpon family, which owns the Mets, and so they've got a lot of experience in New York real estate development, and also obviously a lot of experience in sports and stadium construction and ancillary development around stadiums.
I think it's really important for us to set up a sense of place, and that with millennials, that work, play, live thing for especially well-educated, high-income folks that we need to attract to this area.
Right.
I think you're going to find yourself with a lot of demand for that. In fact, you already announced, I think, that you might be expanding the residential portion of that down the road, right?
That's right. So we, if you'd like, I can go through some of the site plan and kind of explain to you where that is. Looking at a site plan of the Titletown district, first just to kind of give you the geographic boundaries of the district. From east to west, it will go from Ridge Road over to Marley Lane, and then from north to south, it'll span from Lombardy Avenue down to Brookwood Drive, with the easternmost portion of it going a little bit south of Brookwood, right up to Kroll's parking lot. And on the northern corridor, right along Lombardy Avenue, there are going to be multiple buildings. That's on purpose. We didn't want it to be really a shopping mall, so multiple buildings totaling approximately, this is a little bit flexible, but 200,000 square feet of commercial space. So that'll be a mix of retail, dining, entertainment, primarily family entertainment. We're not looking to add to the proliferation of sports bars around Lambeau Field, and some retail. And the first of those buildings will be right on the corner of Ridge and Lombardy, and that is Hinterland. Hinterland will be opening a 20,000 square foot fine dining restaurant.
Gastropub.
Exactly, right. Much like what they have downtown already. Really the exciting thing about Hinterland coming in is it was a terrific story because Hinterland was able to then sell their building and their brewing equipment and really the entire operation to provide a kind of a turnkey entrance into the marketplace from a group down in Appleton called Copper Rock, which is traditionally a coffee roaster, I believe, but they're also going to begin to brew out of that place. So I think that's really exciting to be able to backfill that with a new commercial entity coming to town.
I don't think anybody in Green Bay is going to complain about more beer available.
No, I don't think so either. So then, but on Brookwood here, on the southern corridor, what we envisioned was a row of residential units, and we were thinking probably 2 or 3 story, fairly low scale townhome style residences, somewhat luxurious for the marketplace, and each one would have 2 indoor parking spaces, and each one would have something very special, which would be a backdoor space a backyard space, a private backyard space overlooking the public park and plaza. So we were very excited about that. When we announced that, there was so much, people were very excited. We've got a tremendous list, a wait list already for people who would like to live there. And frankly,
I believe it.
We haven't set prices yet. We haven't done a whole lot in terms of design yet, and we don't even know what square footage is yet, but we've got a tremendous wait list. So We, a little while ago, and we decided to follow through with this, we began to buy options on, if you look immediately across the street on Brookwood, on the south side of the street, there's a row of rental units, duplexes. And they're very nice rental units, actually. But we figured it might make sense to have an option at least to buy those so that we could do a mirror image of our townhouses on the south side of the street, and that, I think that'll help us it'll make for a nicer street, a more kind of cohesive street, but also it gives us the ability to have some diversity in price point, so that the homes on the south side of the street won't have that private backyard space, and therefore they'll be a little more affordable, I think.
This is going to be a huge winner. I mean, no doubt about it. As you know, sports teams have this image, this brand, and people just want to bask in the reflected glory of those. But the advantage here, I think, is this actually doesn't just draw from the Packers brand; it actually extends the Packers
extends
brand.
it into the community. That's really part of the thought here. I mean, if you think back, this is an evolution of the Packers and our unique relationship with this community. I hear stories around the building, around Lambeau Field, about back in the 50s, 60s. If somebody came to Vince Lombardi with a unique or progressive business idea, he would just kind of grumble, "That's fine, do what you want, just keep it out of my locker room and keep it away from my players."
Right.
You fast forward a few years and into the 90s, and Bob Harlan certainly began to realize that you've got to focus on football first. You can't let that slip, but it's got to go beyond that. You can't just focus on the locker room in today's NFL. You have to begin to focus, or even in the NFL in the 90s, he realized you had to begin to focus on your venue. The stadium had to become a year-round attraction for people. Game day was critical. You had to improve the game day experience for people, because TV was getting so easy and so much better to stay at home and watch it on TV. If you wanted people to come to the stadium, you had to offer them a great experience, and if you were going to do that, you had to invest in the stadium. And also he realized, in particular in this marketplace, given how small we are, it's got to be a year-round venue. So I think, fast forward to Mark Murphy's tenure, and Mark certainly understands that you can't let those first two things slip. You've got to focus on football first and foremost in the locker room. Then you have to focus on the stadium, and Mark's done a terrific job over the years of doing some tremendous upgrades and renovations to the stadium. But then there was also a recognition that as the NFL continues to evolve and as we become an even greater anomaly in the NFL in this small market, we've got to not just focus on our locker room and our stadium, but we got to go beyond the footprint of Lambeau Field and out into our community and figure out how do we do our part to help build this community. And this is that's a large part of the inspiration for this.
Oh, I can absolutely believe it. When you think about the kind of housing that empty nesters, young people want, they want to have park the car, leave it there, walk to work, walk to play. I mean, I can only imagine how cool it would be to just sit on one of those decks and watch the world go by on game day.
I think it's going to be exciting. On game day and year-round, I think it's just going to be a really exciting and popular place to be. So continuing on, then, we have the next building here is this is Bellin, and Bellin's going to open a sports health clinic. They've been a long-time partner of the Green Bay Packers, and that'll be facing Lambeau Field. And then we're really exciting, this building here, right on the right across from Lambeau on Ridge Road, is Lodge Kohler. And the Kohler Company is going to be opening a 150-room hotel with a full-service spa. We're pretty excited about that, too.
And if it's anything like the American Club in look and feel, it's going to be awesome.
Well, I think they only know how to, Herb Kohler and the Kohler Company only knows how to do things one way, and that's first class. So I think you'll see that in this property as well.
I saw one of the renderings. It sort of echoes the look of Lambeau itself, which is
it does.
Kind of a neat thing.
In the renderings, actually, the design of the hotel in particular is still in flux, but I don't want to give anything away. When you see the final design, it's really interesting because it takes a lot from Lambeau Field, but it also takes a lot from the main factory building down in Kohler. And it really kind of marries the traditions of those two great Wisconsin brands in an exciting way.
Yeah, I mean, that honestly, if you think about Wisconsin, apart from beer and cheese, it's the Green Bay Packers, and Kohler is something familiar to everybody across the world.
Right.
This is going to be a cool thing. What's the time frame for this?
So the time frame right now, we're in, as I'd mentioned, this is all in the village of Ashwaubenon, so we're going through a permitting process with Ashwaubenon. We'd already just recently, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, submitted all of our plans to Ashwaubenon. That process is moving along well so far. I couldn't tell you exactly how long it's going to take, but hopefully not much more than 2 or 3 months. At that point, we will, if you think 2 or 3 months from now, that puts us in the middle of winter. So the work that we can do at that stage is a little bit dependent on the weather, but what we'd like to do at that point is begin to get into the ground and do all the below-grade work that we need to do on the entire 34 acres. So that's all the infrastructure and utilities work. And as soon as we're done with that, hopefully in sometime this coming summer, our tenants will begin to construct their buildings on the land over there. If all goes well, we'd hope to open Lodge Kohler, Hinterland, Bellin, and the public park and plaza sometime just before the 2017 football season.
It's going to be awesome. I mean,
we got a lot of work to do in between now and then, but
it makes sense because if you look around over the last, say, 20 or 25 years, when especially in baseball, where there was the siting of new stadiums, they kind of got away from the cookie cutter municipal multi-purpose thing, put them into downtown. I think about Denver, for example. And the Cubs are doing something, and that idea of that neighborhood / entertainment experience, I think, is really signatory for a particular town. Around Boston, around the old ballpark there.
Where they have,
I'm going to say Lambeau Field, but where Babe Ruth played. Oh my gosh, Fenway Park. Around Fenway Park.
Yawkey Way, right?
Yeah,
there?
exactly.
It's an exciting place.
It's an exciting place, and it's a cool thing, and it just there's just almost nothing quite like that, in the American experience right now. So I'm not surprised to see this. I'm guessing there's going to be a whole lot of other towns that are going to do this, but it's kind of neat that Green Bay is on the forefront of this. So let's kind of get back to your own experience here. I mean, I'm guessing that a lot of what you do is this. I mean, this is a big part of
this
what you
is
do.
It is a big part of every day now, and it's one of the more exciting parts of every day.
But you're the VP and General Counsel for the Packers. Okay, so that means you have a host of other kinds of responsibilities. So tell us. I mean, who doesn't grow up and want to be, working for an NFL team? I mean, pretty much everyone does. What do you do besides this?
I'm very fortunate because I do get to wear a lot of hats. So I direct the legal affairs and the corporate governance of the organization. The corporate governance is really fascinating to me because, again, there's nothing like our ownership structure and our board structure. I also kind of oversee our ancillary real estate development in this project. And then I oversee security, public affairs, community outreach, and shareholder services, which is also a unique. There's no other NFL team has a shareholder services department. So
no.
So it's kind of a mixed bag. It's fun. Every day is different, interesting, and exciting and challenging.
I think there's a team in the Canadian Football League that has somewhat similar of a ownership structure. Yeah. I want to say the Stampede, perhaps, where they have a lot of shareholders.
Right?
Yeah, in Calgary, which is interesting. But I mean, it's Green Bay is unique because as wonderful as the CFL is, it's not the NFL, and the money that's involved is not the NFL. So you have to worry about stuff like trademark infringements and
that's correct.
All that kind of stuff. Right. Yeah, we've. There's some funny stories, I'm guessing, about that. People selling things, thinking that, hey, I'll just borrow the Green Bay Packer logo and.
Well, yeah, because the team is it's technically not community owned. It is publicly owned, but because the team is kind of community owned, some people think that the trademarks are community owned, and we do. It's a challenge, especially in this marketplace, because we do want everybody to feel an ownership in the Green Bay Packers and even in our marks, and so but we do have to police them. We have partners that support us and pay us in order to use those marks, and in order to make those partnerships valuable, we do have to police the use of those marks.
And the
NFL also has a lot to say in how we use our marks. So I should say another big part of what I get to do is help Mark Murphy in representing the club at the league level. Which is, we're just kind of a unique beast in that ownership room, and that we're sitting amongst a lot of other, high-powered billionaires, and here we are, a community-owned team.
Which, by the way, is arguably the most popular team in the entire league. So I think that's kind of a fun thing to do.
It is.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, you have the same role that a legal or general counsel would have in any kind of an organization.
That's correct, right.
So, how'd you get here? I mean, how'd you wind up in Green Bay, Wisconsin?
Well, I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, which is a town you're probably familiar with. It. It's a steel town, traditionally anyway, historically a steel town, about an hour southeast of Cleveland. In fact, it's about equidistant between Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Cleveland, Ohio. And even back then, football's always just been a very prominent part of my life. Youngstown's a very big football town. I played junior high, and I played in high school and non-varsity in college. And my father was involved in the NFL for probably nearly 4 decades or so.
Carmen policy, right?
Correct.
Very, almost a household name even up here.
Yeah, he had a terrific career. In fact, he's still dabbling in the NFL a little bit. But so football was always a big part of my life. I went to college at Notre Dame and then law school at Stanford. I began practicing law in California for a while and then briefly in Cleveland. And actually, after practicing for, I think it was probably 6 or 7 years, I decided now was the time to get into sports. I'd always wanted to, and in particular into the NFL. But before going directly into the NFL, which at that time had already become so big that if you wanted to go into the NFL, you got to go fairly entry level, and you have to specialize in something and then hope that that grows into something. Rather than doing that, I ended up taking a job with the Arena Football League and moving to New York to do that. And my hope was at the Arena Football League, I'd be able to take on more experience in a shorter period of time and hopefully be able to build a skill set and a body of experiences that would allow me to contribute at some point at a higher level in the NFL. And I thought I'd be at the Arena Football League for maybe 3 or 4 years, but we were growing fast. I was having so much fun. I was really working with a terrific group of people. And so that turned into approximately 9 years before I finally went over to the NFL.
You were actually commissioner for a while.
I was the commissioner of the Arena Football League. I still have a few, there was a limited production of Arena Football League balls that have my name on them as commissioner.
Oh, is that right?
A few of them, which is a lot of fun.
That's like being treasury secretary and having your name on the
Well, yeah, but now my
bills,
kids
right?
play with them in the driveway and they're all scuffed up and they're probably not worth much on eBay, but it was fun. It was a great period of
Until
life.
ESPN does a 30 on 30 for it, right?
Right. But then I went to the NFL, and my goal had always really been, because I grew up and my dad primarily worked with teams and with some very exciting teams, and I always saw the passion that came along with working for a team. And so when I was at the NFL, I had a short list of teams that if a position ever became available, I would jump at, and the Packers were one of those teams.
Well, I mean, your dad was out and one of the primary architects, I would say, of the San Francisco 49ers.
Right.
And actually, so you said you went to law school at Stanford. Bill Walsh was at Stanford when you were, as the coach, when you were in his second stint, right?
In his second stint, that's correct. And he was the athletic director, that's right.
And I mean, you think about guys like Paul Brown, who was from Ohio, of course.
Right.
And him. I mean, these are the legend, and of course Vince Lombardi. But I mean, this is the Mount Rushmore of.
Sure. If you look at the Bill Walsh tree, I mean, obviously Mike Holmgren. I mean, it's impacted so many teams throughout the NFL. If you look at the legacy that he has left.
So I mean, obviously you were growing up and watching what was going on in San Francisco. And you saw a lot of the inside. What was that like to see? I mean, they were the dominant team of, in some ways, a dominant era for the NFL. What was that like to see?
It was exciting. It was just exciting to be around. The passion, because again, they had such high expectations for themselves that if they lost 3 games in a season, those 3 Mondays after those games were just unbearable. The amount of passion and the expectations that they put on themselves and the entire organization was just unmatched from anything I've seen in the NFL in recent days. And
I mean, now the Packers in some ways play the same role that the 49ers did. So I mean, it's the same thing. When the Packers lose a game,
That's right.
I mean, it is, everyone's walking around with a black armband in town.
And the longevity of the success is really similar. When you think about it, there's only been one time when you had true back-to-back franchise quarterbacks, like you had Montana to Young, and now you had Favre to Aaron Rodgers. And one could argue that maybe Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck and the Colts could be the 3rd time that's happened. But the similarities between the two organizations were really are still very striking to me. If you think it's still very much a family kind of culture in the building, very similar to what it was with the 49ers. They're just unique cultures based on winning, I would say.
Yeah, many people perhaps don't remember this, but Steve Young played for the Usfl for a little while. And he was the $40 million man, if I remember correctly.
Right.
He had some deal where he was going to make $40 million. I don't know if that ever got paid or not, but it looked good on paper. And he played for Tampa Bay for a while, and it wasn't terribly successful. No. And then he came over to the 49ers, and he sat on the bench for a couple of years.
Similar to how Aaron kind of really studied behind and was patient, and they're very competitive people, so I think it's hard for them to be patient, but they handled it like professionals. They were very patient. When their time came, they made the most of that opportunity, obviously.
Let's go back to 15 years ago. Green Bay and Brown County voted in favor of supporting the Packers to build the renovation of Lambeau Field. What would have happened if that vote had gone the other way?
You know, it's interesting. When
What would it look like now?
So I'd been around the NFL for a long time, and frankly, I never knew the vote was that close. I didn't realize it only passed by a few points. But I kind of assumed voting to support football in Green Bay was kind of a given. But I don't know what would have happened. I do know in talking to people around the building that there was a real possibility that the stadium would have moved. That they would have had to look to go. I know there were a few communities down south that were potentially looking to house the Packers. I think the NFL was then and is now a very fluid league. I mean, it's been around for a long time. It's as strong as any sports league can possibly be. But if you think about even this year, it's likely that we'll have 3 applications to relocate teams this year. That's nearly 10% of the league applying for relocation. So that, for me anyway, and I grew up outside of Cleveland, there's nothing like the nexus between the Green Bay Packers and this community. But if there was ever a close second in the league, it was the Cleveland Browns and Cleveland, Ohio. Nobody ever thought they would leave. But I remember distinctly in 1995 they did, and they relocated to Baltimore to become the Ravens. And several years later, they brought a team back to Cleveland. Which
Your dad was president, right?
That's right. That was an exciting project for him, too, to be a part of bringing the team back there. But, that was a real eye-opener for everybody, myself included. That was the team I was rooting for through the 70s before my dad got involved with the 49ers. And, it leads to, I think, a little bit of healthy paranoia that we can never take this for granted. Now, I don't know that the Packers would leave. We're not going to up and move. But if we ever got to a point where the NFL's economic model changed or we just couldn't derive enough local revenue to make sense, who's going to bail us out? We don't have that deep pocket owner. We've got a healthy reserve. But if we ever become cash flow negative, who's going to bail us out? Would we have to go back to the community again, to the shareholders? We have limited options. So.
And even now, compared to before, the stakes to play in here are much greater. I think it's probably greater than what a small community can do on its own. And in a sense, that's the beauty of the NFL revenue sharing model.
Yes.
And I know that in recent years that was sort of in question and under attack. I mean, I think some owners felt that hey, we're generating so much of this, why should we share this? But it truly is for the common.
Oh, absolutely. You couldn't have teams in this market, frankly, several other markets without revenue sharing over the years now. So I think it's I'm pretty confident that will continue to exist, but who knows if it'll shift at some point and if it'll evolve at some point, which was why it makes it really important for us to focus not only on our building but on our community to make sure that no matter what the rest of the NFL owners choose to do in terms of the overall NFL economic model, we'll always be able to be successful here.
So we have enough time for just one more question. Sure. I just have to ask you this. You've spent a lifetime around the NFL, and you have watched it grow from something that was pretty special. I mean, a lot of folks have read Instant Replay, Jerry Kramer's book in the 1960s, and that was supposedly the biggest of big time then, and of course, to be what it was in the 80s, and now it's even more than that. If you look forward 20, 25 years, what does the NFL look like? What do you think is going to be the same, and what do you think might be different?
The game itself, I think, will continue to improve. In particular, the health and safety of the players has been really important and a real focus over the last few or several years. So I think the game will continue to improve in terms of the health and safety, both the rules and the equipment. One thing to keep an eye on is how we all consume the game. I think it was 2 weeks ago, the NFL for the first time took a game off TV other than in the home markets. Buffalo played Jacksonville.
In
London,
London,
streamed
right?
the game in London. And
that was shocking.
And it was, by all accounts, wildly successful. It was the first time they streamed a game live over the internet, and it was on Yahoo, and everybody was very pleased with the results. I think that really opens the door. That, coupled with the league's efforts in London and probably soon in some other major international markets, opens the door for this game to become much more global. So I think that's what you're going to see. It's going to become much more global. The distribution channels for it are going to, catch up with technology and with the internet, which is going to help us to become more global.
So we're looking forward to, the opening of the Titletown District. That's going to be very exciting for Green Bay and I think for this whole region. So thank you for coming on and telling us about it.
Kevin, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I hope you've all enjoyed our show. Until next time, I'm Kevin Quinn. Best wishes for good conversations from St. Norbert College.